Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Heartwell dev stream, the live stream series where I continue to develop this adorable Souls-like action RPG with platforming mechanics and a branching narrative. If you find these dev streams interesting or helpful, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and boot that bell button to stay notified. Now, in the previous stream, we actually made these four groups of attack animations. One with the sword, one with the bow staff, one with the spade, and one with the spear. And we're going to be continuing to work on that tonight. So, for those of you who are watching on Twitch, sit back, relax, and enjoy a nice, fun, chill stream while I work on continuing to add more attack animations for after the demo. Speaking of the demo, I actually do have like the full application of the demo all programmed and good to go, at least for an initial release. But it's not publicly available yet, just as I'm working through the process of setting up a Steam page for the first time and going through that approval process. But I'm happy to say that the demo is actually physically complete and will be publicly available most likely in the next couple of weeks. Hello, Copper Nicholson, and hello, Angel Wings. Thanks for dropping by. How's it going? It's been a long time. Hey, thanks, Angel. We're all doing well. Glad to hear it. How have you been? We're in the middle of making some attack animations because the demo is just around the corner. So the actual application for the demo is all set up. It's just a question of going through the Steam page setup and approval process. Fair enough. Yeah, it's definitely been a busy year, hasn't it? Honestly, it's kind of interesting how much time has flied this year, because I feel like there's been lots of ups and downs, but all in all, at least in my life, it's been a fairly good year. Between making progress with Heartwell, releasing my second high-quality challenge run video, and just lots of good stuff going on in my personal life. Okay, so where did we leave off? So, we did these four last time. I think the next, our efforts would be best placed here. So, one-handed weapon attack animation, because that will be in the animation that will apply a lot, I have to imagine, since there are quite a number of one-handed weapons in this game. I think the best place to start with that, I think for the most part, the legs and upper body will be fairly consistent for Dorothy's attack animations, but for one-handed weapons, it'll definitely be a smidge different. So let's use this as our foundation here. Or I guess since it is a one-handed attack, it's just a bit different. We might move it further down. That's two-handed. This is one-handed thrusting weapons. I think more like one-handed swinging weapons. But yeah, thanks, Angel. I appreciate it. And let's see where we leave off. But yeah, there'll be the current plan for the full game of Heartwell is to have about 60 weapons in total, so 30 melee and 30 ranged weapons. So far, we've been working primarily on melee weapons, just because I think, at least right now, a lot of the melee weapons require a bit more animation frames than the ranged weapons really do. I mean, I guess that's not entirely true, but it's just, in my mind, it's easier to kind of position a ranged weapon that's being held to launch some projectile than it is to actually position various other types of weapons, because they behave a bit differently. Like, you generally don't slash with a spear, for example. Okay, let's get body. Yeah, so right now, chat, I'm just grabbing the various animations to get a good start with here. We'll leave the arms alone for now, just because I'll need to probably base this off the fist attack animation. Otherwise, it'll be continuing to make good progress. So let's move over to the face. For those wondering why there's no face on this right side, it's because Dorothy's hair completely covers her face when she's looking upwards. And thus, there's no need to have a facial expression there. let's see here. Now we got that. We'll work on arms in a moment. First things first, though, we need something for Dorothy to actually wield. I'm thinking as a foundation for a one-handed weapon. We have the skeleton key over here. We can use that as a good basis. And swords can be wielded with two hands. So this is closer to a knife in terms of how it functions. So that'll definitely be more in line with a one-handed single arm attack weapon. What type is this? Now. That was apparently my antivirus software just showing a pop-up about that. Sorry about that, chat. Let's see here. That right here. Now, something that was actually pointed out to me last stream was that someone in chat posed the question that is Dorothy familiar with any of these weapons, or is she just doing her best? And my response was that Dorothy is just doing her best. She's not familiar with any of these weapons. So, because of that, this would be a key detail for this, which is more like a knife. Dorothy's actually going to hold it with the blade facing forward, like if someone were using a kitchen knife to chop onions, for example. But I know just from various depictions of the military in media and in video games that the correct, I'm using air quotes here, way to hold a knife is actually with a reverse grip. But Dorothy would obviously not know that. Okay, so for arm animations, I think our best bet, like I was saying earlier, is we are going to try and use the punching animations as a foundation here, since it's a very similar animation that we have to make. Just with the slight edit of, instead of Dorothy throwing her fist forward, she's actually swinging something forward. Or I guess she'd be swinging something to the side. Almost wonder, because when Dorothy punches, she's kind of pushing it forward, but maybe we could do something across the body, kind of like what we see with the two-handed strike, only without like the one hand back there. So many choices. We'll try these. So what I'm doing right now, chat, is just adjusting this to be more in line with this. Now I can move this over here. Well, something has definitely changed. I don't know what, though. What is that? Ah. That is why it is the way it is. Now let's put that over there. Alright, chat, so now I've got the basic arm animations for facing downward. I'm going to switch over to trying to see whether or not I can get it to look right when Dorothy's actually holding some kind of item. Like this, for example. When Dorothy's holding a sword, very much up to wherever the hilt would be. In this case, this being more like a knife, would be around there. Let's flip that vertical. And since it is a blade, it would be... We wouldn't see the side of like this unless it's unless it was pointing outward. So we shall delete that. Make it look like Dorothy's just kind of holding the knife forward, or I guess at a more flat angle. We could do something like... No. Maybe something like that. And then we also delete this side pencil here, so it looks like Dorothy's actually holding the knife. For the arms... Move this over here to make it look like her fingers are holding onto it. There we go. Angel asks, so in terms of Heartwell, is it available on Steam or did you use a different platform? Great question. So the intent will be for it to be available on Steam. I'm actually in the process of setting up a Steam page. So that'll be the goal, is to have it on Steam. So even though the demo's finished, it's not currently publicly available because I'm still setting up the Steam page and there's a whole process for that, especially doing it the first time. But once it's available, then it'll just be a simple visit the Steam page and you can get the demo from there once it's all set up. So, very much looking forward to that. I will say this, I'm learning that there's a whole learning curve to even doing something that sounds as simple as setting up a Steam page. It is not like setting up like a website. There's quite a bit of involvement with it. Yep. Oh, I'm excited about it too. It's like a whole new world is opening up. I'm very excited to get to a point where the demo's out and I'll be able to get feedback from everyone, and I'll still and finally start to talk a lot more about the game's story, because I've been very, very quiet about a lot of the finer details of Heartwell's lore, because I wanted everyone who's interested in it to get, and it's the ability to experience it blind without just my preconceived ramblings on streams affecting their perspective too much. And because it's a very story-heavy game, obviously that means that the story's going to, is a key part of the experience. That look right? Okay. I think with this, the knife would actually be pointed more forward. I don't know what I just grabbed there. Something like that. There. It's pretty neat though, seeing how everything is put together, the coding, the artwork. Sorry, it takes a lot more than most folks think. Oh, well, I'm glad you think so, Angel, and you're right. It does take a lot more than most people think, because it's basically... When I talk to someone who's never understood like the depths of game design, I'm like, okay. What I say to them is, imagine how much effort goes into composing a song, programming logic on a computer, creating the artwork for an animation of some kind, like a cartoon, and writing a story, and developing the rules for a game, like a board game. And now imagine doing all that once. That's basically making a video game. And yeah, I don't know what it is. Something about this, something about this animation doesn't feel right. Oh, I think I know the problem. Dorothy isn't really thrusting with a knife. You don't necessarily do that. I think, honestly, this should be at more of an angle. So, let's save this for a moment. And instead, try rotating this a bit. So I'm thinking, chat. We essentially need to rotate this by 45 degrees. So that way, it'll be around here. So that way people can actually see more of the blade and also make it seem more like they're really going for it. Let's see. So to make that illusion work, that looks weird. If that was a reverse script, it might make sense, but it's not. Oh, you're wondering when I started on Heartwell? It was when I was I think it was like March of 2020 when I first started working on this. So it's definitely been a while. But I'm excited to see how far it's come in all that time. Definitely been a journey. And exciting with that. Because yeah, ever since I was a little kid, I've always wanted to make a full-fledged video game. And now it's finally getting closer to that goal. Okay, you know what the problem is, chat, with this attack animation? I'm now realizing it. No one, like, does a one-handed swing from below the shoulder. Unless they're going for, like, some kind of stabbing motion. So what I'm thinking is... that it'll be better to actually go for something similar to this, where Dorothy kind of reaches her hand back behind her head. Just kind of like if you were swinging a glove or a baseball bat or something like that. So let's make some adjustments. And look at it from that perspective. Yo, Nimalot, thanks for dropping by. How's it been? Yeah, that's been a while, but had spoken after you said the demo was soon. Yep. Well, like I was saying earlier, the demo is coming soon. So the demo itself is actually finished. Like, if I want to, right now, I have an application where I could just sit down and play the demo from start to finish, and any save file on it would be pretty much fine. However, the demo isn't publicly available yet because I want to distribute it from a Steam page. So I'm in the process of setting that up. I've been working on that, trying to write all the descriptions and get the tags all sorted, and I need to edit together a trailer. So there's a whole process to that. So while the demo is finished, it'll probably be publicly available later this month. Just won't be a question of setting up that Steam page. But all in all, I'm very excited for it. Because right now, what we're looking at right here is stuff that's after the demo, you know. Some more of the weapons and things to that effect. So we got... these are just some of the weapons that'll be available in the full game. And very excited to keep that going. Been doing fairly recently. Alright, fair enough. The demo, Copper Nicholson, is free. It's only the full game that would cost money, but the demo's free. Yeah, I've been doing well. You like all you've seen of Heartwell? I'll be sure to leave at least a couple thoughts after playing it. Awesome! Thanks, Time Luck. I really appreciate that. And again, positive and constructive feedback are good too. So if you find something you really like, be sure to let me know. If you find something that needs some work or just isn't very good, again, let me know that too, because I'm always open to feedback to try and make this game the absolute best it can be, because I want it to be the best it can be. And I've seen countless times throughout this, even developing the demo, moments where it's like I had this idea, it didn't quite work out, and then I had to go through a rework. But I'm fine with that if that's, you know, if that's what it takes to make it the best it can be. But yeah. So speaking of which, I know just for the past 20 minutes I've been going from the perspective of, oh, let's keep the animations down low. But in fact, I think we'd be better served kind of going more so with raise arm up, raise hand behind head, and then swing forward, since that would probably be that would probably look better than what we're trying to do right here. Two, I think the best place to start will be with these sorts of animations. Let's grab the arms from here. Okie doke. And here. Oh, chat, this is our jam. Da 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 da. Anyway. Let's... The irony here is I think the right side of the body for the arms is actually probably fine. It's gonna be, I'm sorry, not the right. I mean, it'd be it's our right, Dorothy's left, which is facing downward, but it's this side that needs some adjustments. Let's keep this last one here since it's kind of similar to what we're going for. Instead, go with this. So first thing we need to do is delete all this. Grab the darker color there. Okay. We'll give us our base to work with. Yeah. And what's also fun about, well, I guess what's interesting about trying to draw these attack animations is that, like I mentioned, like was brought up in a previous stream, Dorothy is not familiar with any of these weapons, or with any weapons for that matter. So we have to animate them from the perspective of someone who's really trying their best, but isn't really like a master at any of this stuff. So at least the situations where, like with a bow staff, for example, like someone who's skilled with a bow staff would not wield it this way. They wouldn't. Like, that's not how you use a bow staff. But that's kind of the best Dorothy can think of to do. Did I see the chat? Oh, I think I might have missed it. Let me scroll up to that, Comprehensive Son. Read a message as a Sonic Frontiers character. I'm going to assume you meant that to be read as Sonic, so we'll go from there. This is a message for a friend who's going through a hard time. Don't feel ashamed that you've fallen in out of love with Ruby and are stuck in a rut. You didn't fail yourself as a writer. Rooster Teeth failed you as an entertainer. They spent years writing awful plots and problematic stories. It's become very difficult to defend them. Especially when you look at their IRL business practices. Be proud of yourself for recognizing the toxic fandom and having the courage to escape it. I see. Oh, it's Amy Rose? My apologies, I missed that. 1 second. What would an Amy Rose even sound like? Amy has like kind of a higher pitched voice, like Sonic. No, not that high, but this is a message for a friend who's going through a hard time. Don't feel ashamed that you've fallen out of love with Ruby and are stuck in a rut. You didn't fail yourself as a writer. Rooster Teeth failed you as an entertainer. They spent years writing awful plots and problematic stories. It's become very difficult to defend them, especially when you look at their IRL business practices. Be proud of yourself for recognizing a toxic fandom and having the courage to escape. How's that? My voice can unfortunately only go so high. Like, if I try to go any higher with my voice, I'll just end up with the Ferris voice, like, you cheated! That's the only possible explanation for this! And that's like... that would definitely be a bit too high, even for Amy. Though, speaking of Amy, I'm glad that they added Amy as a playable character in the final Sonic Frontiers update, because she hasn't really been a playable character in, like, a mainline Sonic game for so long, especially not a 3D Sonic game. That was a bad impersonation of Amy. Hey, I try my best, alright? I try to remember the Sonic Adventure, Amy. Yeah. But, yeah, it's so cool to see, like, a good 3D Sonic game, because there hasn't been one in so long. And the fact that they actually stuck with it to, like, make a final content update that basically reworks the entire final chapter of the game, that's so cool. That's so cool. Yep, I appreciate it. I try my best. And it's, honestly, like, seeing Sonic Frontiers, especially with the Final Horizon update, it makes me excited for whatever the next 3D Sonic game is going to be. Because one thing I said during, like, when we were playing through the Sonic Frontiers finale is that I thought that was one of my favorite 3D Sonic games ever. Like, the only one that really stood above it for me was Sonic Adventure 1. Just because I thought that game was a bit overall more consistent compared to, you know, the lackluster final boss of the original Sonic Frontiers. But, you know, if and when I get to playing the Final Horizon update, my opinion might change. Because from what I saw of the Final Horizon update, it looks like they made the final boss amazing, and the build up to it way cooler. But I haven't personally experienced the Final Horizon. And the fact that, again, that they add, like, 3 of Sonic's friends as playable characters again, it's just so cool. And they went all out with it, giving them, like, their own skill trees and unique skills and stuff. Like, to me, it's just like, that is so cool to see again. It's been way too long since they've done that. So that definitely has me excited for where the series might go. Because I feel like if they took, at least from what I'm seeing, if they took what they did in the Final Horizons update and brought it, like, used that as a foundation for another game, like, I think that game would it would have a very solid foundation. Like, a really solid foundation. In my humble opinion, anyway. Now, on that note, We need to think of how Dorothy would hold this stuff. Okay. Starting with this. We flip it around. Okay, so right now, chat, obviously can't see this because I'm doing this just in real life, but I'm trying to think of, okay, I'm holding something in my hand, kind of holding it forward, kind of like the painting of like some farmers, like building a pitchfork. So if I were to hold it forward like that, I'd be able to see, I guess, my fingers and other stuff that we're looking at from the top-down perspective. So, think about how this would look. Let's move. Delete that. Oh yeah. That looks much more like what I would expect. Although, try to make sure it all lines up. Yeah, that should be shifted up 1 pixel. But otherwise, yeah. Actually, if she's holding it like that, just thinking about like this. Yeah, that would be yellow, yellow there. Okay. That's one of the fun things with trying to orient yourself with like pixel art like this is it's not like a 3D model where you could just turn it, the 3D model, to see how it looks. You have to really try to visualize it in your head before you draw it out to help the, you know, to help the player be able to visualize it themselves. We'll make that top spot a bit brighter. Again, these are very little things, but with pixel art, you have so little space to work with, you have to make every pixel count. So that tiny detail gives it the slightest bit of depth, as you can see in like the bottom right corner. And it's a very, very, very subtle thing. But it's all in service to a greater purpose. As once the blade's rotated, of course, then it'll be behind Dorothy's head, much like how the sword's behind Dorothy's head here. If I were to have that, for example. Yeah, because you really... Would the blade even be visible if it was rotated 90 degrees? I don't think it would because it's so tiny. But for the sake of argument, I rotate you by 45 degrees. Oh yeah, I'm always interested to hear about Dungeons & Dragons characters. So if we're holding around there, yeah, it just would not be visible, since it would be kind of behind Dorothy's head. I think for this weapon, though, just to make it seem like there's at least something there, and it's not like Dorothy's holding up nothing. Because Dorothy holding up nothing would make 0 sense. We're gonna move this over here. over here, hide the hair for a second. I don't know, that looks weird. Okay. As I'm banging into the weeds a bit here, I'm just trying to think of how this would look. Yeah, because Dorothy's hair would be in the way, so you wouldn't actually be able to see much of anything. Okay, I guess that kind of works, doesn't it, chat? Because it's like Dorothy has the knife in her hand, she raises it behind her head. You can't really see it because most of it would be behind her head at that point. Then she'll, of course, swing it forward. And once it's swung forward, of course, we'll actually be able to see quite a bit of the knife. Also experimenting with trying to make this look like, you know, an elbow or something. I don't know, chat. I'll ask, so, question for comparison, chat. What looks better? A, so this right here, or B? So essentially, one is just like moving the arm up a bit, having this like this. The other is trying to show, oh, whoops. The other is trying to show as some semblance of an elbow. So this would be A. This would be B. Now, obviously, at playing distance, these might seem like very minor things, but I really do take attention to detail, especially for this game, very, very seriously. I think you prefer B, so B being this one, Copper Nicholson? I mean, I guess it is a bit simpler to go with B. Oh, sorry, I misread the name there. Okay, you think you prefer B? Alright. Yeah, because this would be what it looks like from an actual, gameplay distance. Whereas if we bring that, the elbow kind of looks more like that. Actually, wait, yeah, no, I think I see what you're doing at. You prefer less arm, I mean. Alright, that makes sense. Well, this would be less arm. So, yeah, I think that makes sense. Because now I'm thinking about, like, if I were holding my arm back like this, just kind of behind my head, my elbow would kind of be pointed outward, but that's not really something that's easy to portray in such a small amount of space. It would not be, like, below the arm like that. That would make zero sense. So I think we'll go with this for now. On that note, horizontal, rotate by 90 degrees. To be somewhere around there. Deletes most of this. I think actually wait, if Dorothy was holding it like this would actually be the other direction. Or would it? Hold on. Holding the knife. No, I guess the blade would still be pointed downward. No worries about Copper Nettleston. We were just talking about, like, elbow versus no elbow here. I think this makes sense the way it is right now. But now... moving towards what the weapon looks like when it's actually slashing downward, and I think it would be something like that. Although... it'd be more further downward. No, not that. Let's see. That's what would be further downward like that. Yeah. You're holding onto the hilt. There we go. So that would be a frontward-facing animation for a one-handed weapon. In this case, this skeleton key, which is a type of knife. Now, that's that side. So essentially, it's kind of a mix between the punching animation and the two-handed attacking animation. Which means that similarly, I think that the two-handed animation for the sword will actually be a pretty good foundation for us. Since with the punching animations on the side, you don't really see the backhand. Only really the front hand. Let's grab those arms. Start making some edits. Moving forward. All right. So the difference between the two-handed and one-handed here is going to be this little part right here, since that would show Dorothy like almost cupping her hands together. But obviously here, Dorothy's not doing that. Dorothy would be holding something in one hand. So it would probably look more like that. Actually, I do have the tomahawk animation. That might be fairly similar. Yeah, so tomahawks. Yeah, ironically here, the tomahawk animation is actually a pretty... I honestly don't see why we don't just grab this. This is probably closer to what we're looking for. Grab that. You're trying to assign Dungeons and Dragons character. I think something that can... Yeah, I would think, you know, when creating any kind of character for any kind of role-playing game, I think thing that can help a lot is if you really know your character's story, like their backstory or things like that inside and out, then that can help drive you to a particular type of class or play style. So for example, if I knew that my character loved to read a lot or study a lot, there's a pretty good chance they'd be some kind of wizard or mage, for example. So I would say, Angel, if you're kind of lost and don't know where to begin, start like take a step back and look at this from the perspective of if you were writing a story with a character that would be, I guess, your stand-in as a person, like you want to write a story about a character, think about that character's story. Start there. Think about like who they're related to, what their goals are, what their strengths and weaknesses are as a person, what their interests are, stuff like that. Like writing a character for a fan fiction or even one's own story. And once you have that kind of information, I think it'll become a lot easier to determine like a class and a play style and all that. It can also help if you know what kind of game you're Dungeons & Dragons game you're going to play. So if you're going to play with traditional Dungeons & Dragons, then it's like, okay, medieval knights and monsters and magic and all that. Or if you're playing like some other kind of genre, then that could impact things too. But again, I think it helps to have like character first and then stats and all that, because your like who your character is can help you decide what to actually invest in, since it can definitely be overwhelming at first, just with all the choices there are. That's actually cool. Hopefully you've been trying to figure out what kind of character you want. When you get into storytelling, it can take a life of its own. Well, there you go. So I would say definitely start with the storytelling aspect then, since that would most certainly help you move in a better direction. So why is this going behind? Oh, because it's the head animation. Yet it doesn't up here. I probably removed parts of the face there, didn't I? Nine says, your general method is to start with a gimmick, a concept you can then attach other details to justify or sense mechanics, or later unless a particular mechanic is interesting enough to make a character from. That's certainly another way to do it, Nine Certainly another way to do it. It really does depend on what kind of writer someone is. Some people really love diving deep into stats first and then making a character off of that. I've always been kind of the opposite approach, thinking that character comes first and the stats will follow naturally. Yeah. Like, sometimes gimmicks inform, like, how you'd want to play the game, but it doesn't necessarily inform as much about the character, since the character can still be, something... Like, the way you write the character could still maybe lend itself to a class that doesn't seem to make sense on the surface at first. Alright, let's see if I... It's my hunch correct that I changed the face here. No, face is the same. How is that? Oh, I think I know what I did. It's part of the weapon, isn't it? No? What? In the foreground layer? No. The character layer? No. Yeah, for those who are wondering why I'm confused, that's... Aha! Yeah, because the face is kind of in front of... I don't know. That's what was confuzzling me. I was like, how is that in front of a layer that it should be. The answer is it's not. Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the gimmick idea though, Nimlock, because ironically, like if someone were to tell me like if I were to start a brand be a player in a brand new Dungeons and Dragons game, what kind of class I would want to be. Like, the thing is like, just because I played a fair amount of, like, support characters and stuff like that, my thought is, you know what? If I'm gonna be a new player in, like, a Dungeons & Dragons campaign, I want to be a sniper. Like, I want to deal lots of damage and crit damage and stealth stuff, but also be, like, really, really, frail in terms of stuff like that and having to really keep my distance. Like, I feel that'd be an interesting thing to play as, and that's before even coming up with the character itself. But yeah, generally I try to stick more with the principle of write the character first and then focus more on the then focus on actually building the stats for that to match that. Yo, Jay, thanks for dropping by. How's it going? Swishy wizards are fun until you yourself get sniped. True. That's why I'm saying I should be the sniper, because you can't get sniped if you're the sniper. Actually, no, you can still get sniped if you're the sniper, but at least you can do some of the sniping. How's it going, Jay? We are in the midst of making the one-handed attack animation. It has been a little bit of a process, but we're ironically find that the tomahawk attack animation, which is a ranged weapon, actually lines up pretty well with the thought for how an animation would go for some of these one-handed weapons, like this, the skeleton key, for example. Your Pathfinder Airbender periodically suffers greatly from wisdom being the dump stat. It's fun. True. True. Yep, min-mats for the win. Min-mats for the win. Alright. Okie doke. Well, glad to hear you're doing well, Jay. Mechanically, a wisdom that was objectively the worst choice you could have made, but that's not something you care too much about. Yeah, fair enough. You're like, was it a bad decision? Yes. Do I care? No. Yes, it's fun. The thing is, though, like, if we're making, like, a sniper kind of character, like, what would the dump stats be? My guess is probably dexterity. And then whatever stat is tied directly to movement, and that'd be it. So you have basically a character that can relocate effectively and can attack from a very long distance and deal really good damage, but otherwise is extremely frail. I also like the idea of, like, if someone were to make, like, a custom sniper or class for, like a homebrew Dungeons & Dragons campaign, the idea of, like, having, like, your accuracy with your sniper rifle being worse if you're, like, in super close range or something like that, to, like, balance it and really make it so that you want to be far away. And perhaps even provide bonuses if you're beyond a certain distance from a target. So, like, because I don't really see any... like, at least in traditional Dungeons & Dragons, I don't really see any abilities like that, or, like, classes like that, whereas, like, the goal is actually to be far away from your target, and being close is a bad thing. There are attacks that can hit from a long distance, sure, but what I'm saying is something where it's, like, the goal is actually to be far away. You'd say high deaths and ints because you call a sniper a finesse weapon. That's true. But now we're thinking traditional Dungeons & Dragons terms. Whereas I think like a sniper would probably fall more in line with like some kind of homebrew campaign where perhaps the standard stat distribution's a little bit different. But yeah, definitely deaths, because at least if Souls changes the style as anything, is that deaths usually applies to ranged weapons. until you realize that you two-hand weapons with strength, and strength is the 50% damage bonus, but whatever. For face combat, that would be that those don't exist because they don't encourage fun playstyles. Like, either you'll be basically non-combat, the rest of the party fights, or you and the party are far away while you're the only one to attack. And to that, I disagree. Because that's just your initial reaction, but my disagreement with that is it really depends on the DM. Like, I feel like a competent DM can make any party's group have fun battles. For example, when I heard that, like, I was at like a convention, and I was going to a panel where there was like some experienced dungeon masters. It's, you know, it's sharing some of their stories being dungeon masters and tips for like people who are interested in being DMs or players. And one of them brought up that they had an example of a campaign where there were what they called one of their more challenging moments as a DM is when you had basically 4 characters that all wanted to play wizards. Like, all of them wanted to be mages or some kind of magical something like that. And the way they handled it was to add an NPC that would do more physical damage. But when I look at that, I'm thinking like, you know what? If all my players want to be mages, to heck with the traditional rule set, let me make like a whole bunch of different schools of magic, a la Owl House or Harry Potter or something like that. So that way, even though they're all like wizards or mages, they could really kind of come into their own element, so to speak, whatever they decide, or whatever myths of magic they come up with, and then balance it like that, you know? All range attacks in 5e have disadvantage within 5 feet. Well, I feel like with a sniper, the range, the disadvantage would have to be more penalized, because I feel like if you're doing a Dungeons & Dragons campaign with sniping, there's a pretty solid chance that firearms or some kind of like plasma weapons or futuristic stuff is fairly common. So you probably want to make close range weapons better up close and long range weapons worse up close, and vice versa. So like make shotguns do ludicrous damage up close but deal no damage past a certain distance, versus sniper rifles being like super heavy hitting from a long distance and very accurate, but up close you really suffer that accuracy. Well, to each their own. I'm block. I'm more coming from the perspective of being an experienced DM and really liking to play with all the mechanics in Dungeons & Dragons, not like stitch so closely to the status quo or what's expected in traditional 5e rule sets. But that just comes from years of experience running a homebrewed campaign and really treating it a lot more like improvised game design than simply role playing. Though, to be fair, I think being a dungeon master in general is improvised game design. And now with that tangent covered, let's get our ducks in a row here. It would go somewhere like that. Okay, so this is where the top of the knife should be. That's over there. Well, that doesn't make sense because... 1, 2. Okay. So if the top of the knife was here, move it down 2. Yeah. Maybe move it forward 1. Okay, now it looks like Dorothy's actually holding the knife. You're not thinking in terms of staying on the status quo, you're thinking in terms of exactly how that would impact the game, which the sniper personally seems unfun to be in a party with a lot of the time. Well, my response is, again, it's like designing any kind of game. You need to design the game around the player character or player characters. So, for example, Nimalok, let's say, for the sake of argument, that your party is trying to ambush, like let's say you enter a dungeon corridor or something, and you have a sniper in your party, what I think the smart thing to do would be make that corridor just a little bit longer than it usually is, and have like some kind of ranged opponent, like the very end of the corridor, combined with some more melee-based opponents, maybe with like heavy shields or something. Either in the middle of the corridor or something like that. So that way it's like everyone has something they can engage in, and it feels like they're able to make use of that. Or for bigger battles, like if you have like one of your larger maps for like a really massive battle, and perhaps people start on different sides of the battle, you have, your more melee focused people try to close that gap against specific people, while the sniper tries to go off in a different make use of some of the terrains to gain a height advantage and things of that fact. Like, I feel like there's some genuine fun to be had there in strategizing as a party. A lot, and would provide a lot more depth than just, okay, let's throw the DPS up front, keep the healer behind that sort of thing. Looking to 5v to that structure and damage to makes you laugh out loud. Fair. But what I'm saying is, though, it's like there's so much to, there's so much potential with like a wide variety of play styles among your players. Like, I bring up the sniper as the example here, but I could equally make the same there's the same arguments we had if you have a character that has like some kind of class that dominates up close but has absolutely nothing it can do at range. There's a balance to be struck in all cases. Oh dear. Why? What's happening? Okay, there we go. Why does it go dark there? Oh, because that's the foreground. Right. Anyway. Just put that over there. Everything's a learning experience, Copper Nicholson. Anyway, looking at the time, 7:43, I think this will actually be a good spot to take our first break. So, don't get anywhere, guys. I will be right back. Alrighty, chat. Welcome back, everyone. Let's see here. Okie doke. Hey, thanks, everyone. Oh, yeah, good idea. Stay hydrated. I got my water bottle right here. I'll also mention, chat, the past couple of Trails from Zero streams, it's kind of been fun to just use Noelle needing to drink coffee as an excuse to do my hydrate break. Because the past couple of streams, Noelle's been one of the characters in them, and we've had this running gag on stream that Noelle can't remember anything unless she's had her coffee. So the end result is that there are many situations where I'm like, you know what, this would be a good time to make a silly joke, and I also need to hydrate, so it's a win-win. Now, does that fit with the character at all? No, but that's why it's just so funny, because it's just one of those running gags we got on a Trail stream. Yeah, I guess that's what has made the Trails games, also the crosscode as well, really, really fun. Is in addition to the challenge of it all, there's also just the fact that there's so much fun to be had with just enjoying the characters and the story and trying to have them play off each other. Yeah. Yep. The other thing is, like, you know, as I've grown more experience with the DM, especially more recently, I've gotten a lot more structured with how, like, upgrades work and balancing and things to that effect. There's definitely a learning curve for me, too, to be a DM. But especially more recently, I feel like now what my campaign has evolved into, at least combat-wise and tactics-wise, now has a lot of depth to it and a lot of variety. And there's like a definitive structure to it. Whereas when I was first starting my campaign, it was all very much, I was making things, you know, trying to develop things as I went to keep building on it, because it was all a homebrew campaign, but it's all, you know, like many things, it just comes with time and experience. Same thing can be said with, you know, with Heartwell. Like, fun fact, when I first started developing Heartwell, I had this idea of like, okay, there's gonna be like all these skills to upgrade and like weapon arts and stuff like that. But then as I started to really, you know, get more experience as a developer and drill things down, I realized all that stuff sounds fun in theory until you realize that I just don't have the manpower to develop that in any reasonable period of time. Same thing can be said about, like, similarly, like there was quite literally in Heartwell a fourth blue bar that was supposed to be similar to like the FP you have in Dark Souls 3 for like weapon skills and stuff like that. But as I got more to drilling down how to make, you know, what can I realistically develop as one person, I realized that that's just too much scope. It would take way too long to pull off without as much of a benefit. So the end result is that So the end result is that as I got more seasoned as a developer, I started essentially trying to narrow down on scope creep, as it's called, and make everything more developable and achievable for one person. And now that's led to the much more refined and system that we have today, where there's 4 skills that each weapon has, so it still retains that sense of uniqueness, but there's not 20 like was originally thought, which would make things way harder to balance and develop and program. So it still retains some of its original depth without actually while still making it actually doable for someone like me. Let's move this here. Does that make any sense? Maybe kind of more like that. And then maybe with the arms attacking. I grabbed the wrong thing again. Whoops. Like that. Okay, hold it up. Slash forward. What do you think, Well, I appreciate the feedback, Copper Nicholson, but I'm, you know, at the end of the day, I'm still going to... I was also learning things as a DM, and I feel like I've gotten better in general over time. Especially more recently. Now, as for this right here, I'm trying to see, does this make sense for the way it looks right now? The way it was held before, I guess maybe if we move the arm in a bit, it would make more sense. Let's try that. The arm over here. And move the attacks over here. Does that look better, chat, or does that look stiff? Trying to wonder. I think it looks good. Like if we... I'm just thinking like if you're slashing downward with this one-handed weapon, I think that makes sense. Or does the hand look too... Oh. I mean, Dorothy's hand can be set at small amounts. Oh, you know what could be? What if we did... No, not that. What if we did... this? Actually, no, that looks weird. Let's see here. Have that there to move it in. And moving it down would make no sense, so that would be too far, I think. But... okay, you know what? I think that... so we move it in once. So I'm trying to debate, like, do I move this in like this or not? It's a solid thing, but there's a part of me that feels like, does that make Dorothy's hand too small? Or wait, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't, because it's at an angle. Right. So if we're slashing down, it might be at an angle, so it will look more like that. I think. Okay. Oh, that. Well, copper nickelstone, that's actually quite simple. Have you ever read the Monkey's Paw? If you haven't, it's a decent read. It's a short story. It's basically about having this literal monkey's paw that's it's supposed to be magical. You wish for something and it will provide it to you, but it provides you whatever you wish for, much like genies of old, it also it comes with a price that's equal to or even worse than what you originally wished for. Oh yeah, the monkey's paw. So in the case of the monkey's paw, for example, I think one of the main characters who has is like, you know what? We don't want to like wish for untold riches. We just want to have enough money to pay off our mortgage. You know, something reasonable like that. And then basically they do the wish, and what ends up happening is their wish comes true. They get exactly the amount of money they need to pay off their mortgage, but the way they get it is because their relative dies in a workplace accident, and that money comes from the life insurance. So again, it's like there's a really tragic cost to the wish. And you can imagine, like, if that was the cost for just paying off a mortgage, imagine how much worse it would have been if they really did try to go for, like, I want to be like as rich as a king or something. Like, oh dear. Now, well, because copper nickelstone, like the monkey's paw, you're effectively changing fates. Okay? So, like in the monkey's paw, your wish is effectively changing fate. So, the way I interpreted the Maiden of Choice was to line up with that thought process, is you are quite literally changing fate. Or, put another way, you're making a wish, much like you would with a genie. But in turn, you make that wish, there's going to be a price to pay. You're making that choice, there's going to be a price to pay. Those actions have consequences. Now, enough about that. Let's switching gears back to Heartwell. I think we're actually making some decent progress here with the attack animations. I know we've been working on this one little set of animations for most of the stream, but keep in mind, this is fairly fundamental for a lot of different weapons. So once this is here, much like how up here this two-handed weapon attack animation was able to be used for three weapons and probably even more, because there's definitely more that would fall into this category. Now, the same thing can be said with like one-handed weapon attacks. So let's get this over here. Should probably also put that there, and that over there. Now, let's keep on moving forward. Where once again, I think the tomahawks are going to provide a good foundation for us to work from. Okay, grab that over there. Yeah, I do. Hope everyone's a good night. All right, thanks for dropping by, Angel, and hope you have a good night as well. this over here. Now we bring the weapons over here. Basically flip them around. So right there. Actually, no, it would be just pure gray from this side, so grab that. Get that on down. Rotating. Wait, is it really that long? Interesting. Okay, if it's that long, then I would actually need the other space. 1 second, chat. Good. Oh, but when it's held from that angle, lower, and this would not be visible. Yeah, so it'd be kind of like that. Whereas if we were to adhere very closely to that, like the rock drawing animation, which I think the rock drawing animation had to do something a bit differently when we're looking at it from behind, didn't we? Yeah, it did. Okay. The hand is definitely higher up than it was, yeah, way higher up than it was before. I guess that's all a matter of perspective, though, isn't it? If I were to put this at the right height, it would need to be 3 pixels lower. Doing that would probably look weird. What would this look like on the other side, I wonder? So that would make sense. Alright, in that case. Let's go with front of body. Up one. Okay, over there. Okay, so you got it up. All right, no worries. Nice dropping by. Have a good rest of your day, Jay. Yeah, it does look like that. Okay. Yeah, using the Tomohats as a foundation so far has been quite helpful. Let's see what we can do. Okay. And now this attack animation actually made sense because the arms are at the right height. Right now I'm just adding the weapon so it's properly behind Dorothy's head. There we go. Now looks like Dorothy's actually holding the knife up right there. Okay. And there we go. Definitely took us a wee bit, chat, but we actually got... Da-da-da! New attack animation. Now for the fun part, chat. We actually have to propagate this base attack animation so that we can use it for various weapon types. I'll move these over for future editing. Now, considering how compats, well, it's still good to have this as a model just because some one-handed weapons might be a bit longer than others. Alright. So, put our notes here. Alright, chat, so now we have some basic attack animations here. It's time to think of what to work towards next. I'm thinking we can start working through some of the attack animations that line up with what we currently have here. So in terms of thrusting type attacks, we actually do have this lance here. Or let's call it Gravity Lance. So we can start work on that one for these attack animations. Let's grab everything. We'll be doing a one-hand attack animation down here as well, when the time comes. Doke. Let's move the face over here. And the hair. And just like that, we have the foundation for our next sub-animations. So, let's grab ourselves the Gravity Lance. That over here and start putting things together. So the interesting thing here is that the Gravity Lance actually does have a similar length to, well, I think the spear is actually slightly longer if we include the bottom edge of the hilt, but I think in general it will be functionally similar in length. That actually gives us a good starting point. So we start at Y339. Oh, that doesn't make sense. No, it's not. Is that 339? Yeah, this is why 309. Yeah, the lance is just too hefty of a thingy. No, I guess Dorothy to be holding it like that. Okay. One, two, three, four. It's quite definitely a beefy weapon. The thing about this weapon is I think it needs to have a longer wind-up time than the spear does. We'll need a third animation frame for this one. Somewhere. Or I guess we can start with that, just have it as a reference point. I mean, it being a lance makes sense. It has slightly longer reach than a spear would, just by design. Okay. So now we have to rotate the view. Yeah, chat, just look at the lance is quite beefy, isn't it? Actually, I take it back. It was that the lance would have like a little hollow portion on the inside. This would actually be a bit higher, wouldn't it? That kind of looks silly. Well, actually, I guess it's because this would be... V would have to be rotated. Ultimately, I guess as long as it all fits as long as it all fits with like the attack animations, a slight difference in length should be fine. There's even once it's set outwards, only gain 1 extra pixel there. Okay. There. Keep it moving forward. There we go. Yeah, the Gravity Lance is definitely a cool looking weapon. Very much reminds me of Shining Force. How some of the stronger lances looked in that game. Definitely going to need some editing here. Okay. Go that far. Okay. Okay, now we got that. This over down. Down there. Well, I'm not sure what to say, Copper Nicholson. That's probably has something to do with your technology, because I think, you know, others on stream have been able to hear me just fine. So, you know, maybe something could be happening with your headphones or things like that. I know, at least with my headphones, over time they definitely get worse until I have to buy some new ones. So there's always that possibility. All right, let's see here. Don't mind me, chat. I'm just making some edits here. Over there. Okay, let's see here. Okay. Okay, that lines up. Now for over here. All right, there's another one, chat. Wonder if we should go with the lighter color here, though. Just when this when the gravity lance is used, it does activate. So it would probably show some kind of energy here. Okie doke. That's the gravity lance. good stuff. Let's do a single-handed weapon. So seeing what we still have left to work with. I think we'll go with we have the Q-Nice, the Ice Pick, and the... Well, no, the Q-Nice isn't a melee weapon, that's a ranged weapon. We have the Ice Pick and the Sonic Baton. Let's try the Sonic Baton. Alright, chat, I think those will be good spots at your second break, so don't go anywhere, guys. I will be right back. Alright, chat. Welcome back, everyone. Alright, one of the nice things about the Sonic Baton is it is symmetrical, no matter which way you rotate it. Well, I mean, I just rotated it like along this axis, the vertical axis. So, yeah. So I might line this up a lot easier. Although, man. Grab that, move over here for the Sonic Baton, which would be a melee weapon that deals wind damage. To be here or here? I'm just trying to visualize this in my head, how this will line up, chat, so give me a second. More to the right or to the left? More to the right, okay. Over here. Right now, chat, I'm just checking to make sure that all lines up with the way the animation is. Okay. Next, down here. Need a bit of a rotated on baton. Oh. Must rotate that baton. Image rotate 45 degrees. Now make some edits. It all lines up. There. Delete that. Where are those edges? Here. Okay. And right now I'm just trying to get that edge right. I almost wonder. That work? I feel like that could work. notes here. Let's see here. Okay, I think that makes sense. Wait, let's write now. Yeah, it's kind of tiny like that, isn't it? I just would have that dark spot there, wouldn't it? Yeah. There we go. Baton move to an angled surface. There. I know I'm not talking a lot right now, chat, but right now I feel like I'm kind of in the zone, as they say. So, very much hyper-focusing on trying to do everything just right. There we go. Oh, and here's our jam chat. Erosion. Dun, 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 dun. Let's grab this. Do this over here. Hey, now Inventions, thanks for dropping by. How's it going? Looks super cute. Thanks, I appreciate it. But we're drawing some attack animations tonight. So some things we did tonight were the one-hand attack animations over here, starting with the skeleton T. Over here we have the gravity lance. Now we're working on the sonic baton. Let's get that all over here. Okay, that goes there. Now to, oh wow, that that one action actually works perfectly. Yep. Yeah, this. the other animation frames, it should hopefully be a bit simpler since some of these are just rotated. Rotate that. Yep. We are very fortunate the Sonic baton is just short enough not to overlap when the animations are facing this way. If it was 1 pixel longer, they would overlap. And these are all weapons, of course, that would be after the demo. Not in the demo, but after the demo. Do I use on the ads animation? Do they line up? I think they do. Or is this the spade animation? Yeah, that lines up. Okay. I might as well double check the ads animation. Just think the ads animation lines up. It does. It just kind of looks like it's turned to one side or the other. Okay. How do I plan exactly how many frames to draw? It seems that you have carefully drawn each action the character can take. Ah, that's actually a great question now, it mentions. So it comes, there's a couple of key factors. The first factor is simply what is the minimum amount, like if I were to take a picture, take a couple of pictures of someone doing an action, how many pictures would I need to actually convey that action happening? So, for example, let's just take things in isolation here. So, working on this, let's use the spade as an example, because it's a really obvious one. So, if I were to just look at this animation frame right here, it doesn't necessarily tell me what Dorothy is doing. Did Dorothy just swing with this spade, or is she just about to dig a hole in the ground? You know, just this picture by itself would not be enough to convey an action. However, if I add this action, it helps, you know, this action before this frame here, it helps a bit more. Like if I were holding in this above my head and then bringing it down, that would, in theory, be enough to convey that attack. But that's where the second part comes in, is also balancing purposes. When I think of a medium-sized weapon like that, going from raising the weapon up like that to just down would probably be a bit too fast for something like this. And because of that, it also wouldn't necessarily look as fluid, because essentially you'd be going from or standing facing to the left. I'd be in a somewhat neutral position like that, and going from that to having something raised above my head might seem a bit jarring. So that's why we add this third frame for balancing purposes and for animation. If I do this frame one after the other, so first holding it right here, then raising it up, then bringing it down, those in sequence convey to very similarly to someone, you know, raising a shovel and then smacking it down. And this is what we call keyframing. So a keyframe in animation is essentially an animation where if you take if I were to take a video of someone doing an action and then cut out every bit except the bare minimum to convey what the action was, that would be identifying the keyframes. So basically, now I mentioned, I try to determine in my head what are the most important aspects of an action to convey that action in as few pictures as possible, so that the human brain kind of fills in the rest once you see the animations in a sequence. Does that make sense now, inventions? Also, on topic of the amount of keyframes, for weapons that are supposed to be, you know, a bit moderate in speed, having, in my case, 3 keyframes seems to make sense. I can always speed them up or slow them down how quickly they move, like with the fists. The fists also have 3 keyframes, but the animation sped up quite a bit, so it happens faster than some of these would. On the other hand, a thrusting weapon like a spear or a lance, really, you really only need 2 keyframes to convey that because of the way those weapons work. And, well, not so much the lance, but definitely the spear, they're meant to be faster attacking weapons anyway. So if you think about it, you're holding a spear in front of you, then you just kind of thrust it forward, that's it. Like, that's the attack. Or in this case, the first keyframe is of pulling the spear back, rain for the attack. The second keyframe is thrusting it forward, and that's it. You really don't need anything else. In this case. So that'll, you know, by default, make these feel a bit faster than perhaps some of the swingy weapons. And on that topic, speaking of swingy weapons, Sonic Baton. Gonna be moving this around. I want something like that, then. So what I'm doing here, chat, like before, is I move the weapon to about where it would be being held, and then I try to delete any unnecessary stuff like that, so it looks like I'm holding it. And thus, while we're very zoomed in right now, if you look in this bottom right corner of like actual size, it actually looks like Dorothy has just swung to this baton. So for these attacks that need less actions as such, how do you maintain the FPS? Do keyframes relate to the FPS? Great question. So, in fact, the FPS is... Let me answer that question with a different point. If you have more animation frames, that means there are more frames in total. However, the rate that those frames progress are something I actually directly control in Fusion 2.5's animation editor. So basically, like, when I'm moving these keyframes into my animation editor, yes, there might be 3 frames here versus 2 frames here, but I also have a speed, a frames per second, or a frame rate, if you will, that I can control for, like, the animation speed. So, in theory, with a lance, for example, it has 2 keyframes. If I wanted to, I could make this, basically the animation speed for this slower than, say, a 3 keyframe action like a fist attack. So even though this only has 2 keyframes and fists have 3, the fist would definitely, would most likely finish this animation before this would. And that's just by controlling the speed in the editor, even if there are fewer keyframes. And the thing about speed is by making weapons have a slower or faster animation speed compared to each other, it can make some weapons feel weightier or lighter, even if they have the same amount of keyframes. So for example, I would say, if I were to rate speeds here, I would say the bow staff would be probably the fastest of these 3 weapons here. Like, the bow staff and sword would probably either be similar speed or the bow staff slightly faster, but whereas the spade would be slower. And logically that would make sense, because the spade there's a lot more heft to this weapon than, say, a staff would. So you'd expect this to be faster than this. And that all comes out just adjusting animation speed. On the other hand, swinging a sword versus simply thrusting a spear, spear's gonna be faster. Just because it makes logical sense. Oh, thanks, Antomicx. I try to think this out as best I can. But this is all part of, again, it also comes back to balancing as well. Because it's like, weapons deal different amounts of damage, so that's one lever to pull. So you might think, okay, if weapons deal different amounts of damage, I should just use the weapon deals the most damage, right? Well, not necessarily, because another lever to pull here is reach. So if you look at these 3 weapons up here, the bow staff definitely has the most reach, but it also would deal the least damage per hit compared to something like a sword or even the spade. So there's pros and cons to each in that case in terms of weapon reach. And of course, attack animation speed, that's actually another lever I can pull for balancing purposes. So maybe a weapon doesn't hit as hard as another, but it attacks a lot faster, so perhaps it could have higher DPS if you could sustain multiple attacks in a row versus going for one slow but big heavy attack. And depending on your strategy with boss fights and fighting enemies, being able to attack quickly means you might also have more opportunity to get attack in and get out of the way in situations where a heavier weapon would be too slow to attack and allow you to get away safely. On the other hand, if you're trying, if the goal is to fight as quickly as possible, perhaps going for that heavier hit is worth it, even if it happens less frequently. Or perhaps a boss is so dangerous to be close to in general that you want to just go for that high burst damage of one big hit when the few opportunities arise. Again, all part of Souls-like balancing. Lots and lots of things to consider. And speaking of things to consider, that's the Sonic Baton. All animated. I think we have time for at least one more animation tonight. I think to keep things nice and simple, so we're not going too far into creating new animation types, I think we'll go with the ice pick right here. Let's grab that. So the ice pick is very much in the vein of this is a one-handed weapon. Oh. Welcome back. Hey, Copper Nicholson. We just finished animating the Sonic Baton attacking animation, so those are looking quite good right now. Now, we're moving on to the ice pick. So, similar story as base animations are going to be, well, as the base animations for just Dorothy's position are going to be the same as these two. So even though we spent a lot of time creating the base animations at first, now that we've done that, weapons that would essentially be used in a similar way can reuse that base animation to make it faster. You wonder if an ice pick axe would be similar to a spade. So in this case, the ice pick would be a faster attacking weapon, because as you can see, it's definitely a smaller weapon than the spade is. But the spade might deal more damage per hit, perhaps. It all depends on how I want to balance it. I still obviously need to think of like overall base damage values, scaling, and specials for a lot of these weapons, because if you think about it, you have 60 weapons in the game, and each weapon has has to have 4 specials that can augment it in some way. And then you have to get into like scaling and balancing the different elemental damage types and the effects that come with that. It takes essentially, chat, I've had to come up with a spreadsheet to help me with that balancing purposes to make sure I have a way to compare these things, like trying to compare like damage on hit versus damage per second and many other factors. And even then, I still have to fill out that spreadsheet more and try to factor in the different types of potential specials there could be. Because even if I set up a spreadsheet, I'm like, okay, on paper the base weapons are all balanced. Even when I get to that point, I'll still be like, all right, now I have to balance it with all the specials that make the weapons unique, you know? So there's a lot of organizing that goes into trying to achieve good weapon balance. But it's definitely a satisfying endeavor, and one I'll be doing a lot more now I'm pushing towards trying to publish the demo and go beyond that. So when I was basically developing the demo, the main weapon balance was focused exclusively on the weapons that would be in the demo. But now that now the demo is finished and I'm moving towards publishing the demo, I can focus more on, okay, what's the overall weapon balance of the game look like? It was very satisfying coming up with the stuff, because I've always, ever since I was in like even middle school, I would play like the Call of Duty games and watch YouTube videos that would go into granular detail about about specific weapon stats and whether they're overpowered or not. So I consider gameplay balance to be very important. As a result, that makes me excited. Now I have my, I'm basically developing my own game from the ground up. It's like, okay, there's 60 weapons. I gotta balance them. So that's all. I want to have a justifiable reason to use any of these weapons. Definitely going for quality over quantity in terms of the number of weapons in Heartwell. So even though there might not be numerically as many weapons as a game like Elden Ring, which has hundreds of weapons, I'm trying to make it so that every weapon feels unique and has a justifiable reason to exist. And another aspect that also affects balancing in Heartwell is just the simple fact that weapons you earn later in the game should generally be stronger than weapons that are obtained earlier in the game. But weapons that are obtained earlier in the game should also be perfectly fine if you stick with them. Because that's something I feel like Dark Souls 1 especially handled quite well. Is, while there are some really cool weapons later in the game, your standard longsword is more than competent enough to get you through the entire game. Similar to how, like, and this concept kind of goes beyond just Souls-like games. If I look at first-person shooters like Team Fortress 2, for example, the default weapons in that game are actually generally some of the best. Like, seriously, like, they are tried, true, and tested, and they're reliable. It's in a game like Team Fortress 2, the way they balance most of their alternate weapons are meant to be side grades, not upgrades, so more so to play to a different play style. And what that means is, most of the time, the default weapon actually ends up being a very strong, good pick. So you don't feel like if you're a new player getting into this game, oh no, I don't have all the good weapons, I'm doomed. Like, no, because you have a really solid weapon at the start, so to speak. Now, saying that, I don't think anyone's going to be overly concerned over the idea that fists and rocks being the weakest weapons by default, because let's face it, compared to all this other stuff, do you really think fists and rocks should be like an even remotely comparable? And it's for that reason that they're balanced in such a way to be more supporting tools if one were to stick by them later in the game. The developer should be played. Skewed weapon balance could sometimes shadow non-default weapons, though. True. Yeah, fists and rocks are the default weapons in the game. So the way I balanced so basically I thought to myself, okay, fists and rocks, these are like as basic a melee and ranged weapon as you could possibly get. How do I make sure these feel viable even in later game when literally everything else should be doing way more damage than them? And the way I've done that is, okay, Fist has this one special called, what is it called? Fists have a special called Gifted Hands, which actually, I think it increases your, like how effective your healing charges are by like 50% or something like that. And it doubles your ammo regeneration rate. And if, for those who have seen, like, me playtesting Heartwell, you know that ammo regenerates very slowly. So doubling that rate makes ranged weapons way, way, way more usable. Well, not usable. Like, you can rely a lot more heavily on a ranged weapon if your ammo regenerates a lot quicker. So that basically makes it so that with fists, even if all the other melee weapons will deal more damage and outpace it in DPS or things like that, the fact that it has a special that could make it give a great utility for both your healing charges, so basically like your Estus Flask in the name, your healing potions essentially, and your ammo in one special on, you know, one melee weapon, it gives, you know, a viable reason to use it even in like endgame, because it's like, if you're trying to build around primarily a ranged weapon, you might as well use your fists so you get some utility out of them. And the same can be said about rocks. So the thing about rocks is, as to be expected, they do not deal a lot of damage. You're throwing a rock. That's not going to be at all comparable to many other ranged weapons. But similarly, I gave rocks a special that helped them maintain some viability even later on, because the special allows rocks, I think it's called like galvanizing gemstones. It gives the rocks a, it gives the rocks the surge status status effects by default. In other words, even though rocks are not an electric weapon, they actually get access to surge buildup. Why does that matter? Because surge buildup, the surge status effects, the more it gets built up, the higher the chance of dealing a critical hit. So in other words, no matter what your base critical hit chance is, even on a weapon that has 0% critical hit chance, if I'm hitting an enemy with surge, so basically like the surge status effect, then I'm constantly increasing my critical hit rate against that enemy. And as a result of increasing the critical hit rate against that enemy, you can use that to really build around actually reliably getting crits on an enemy that has a lot of health by throwing a bunch of rocks at them. So in other words, you turn what's basically like an ultra low damage weapon, it's like, why would I ever use this when I can get something better, to now it's like, oh, well, rocks have probably the lowest or one of the lowest ammo costs in the game and can be thrown really quickly. And it also has surge buildup, so now it's like, if I want to build around a melee weapon, why not use rocks so that I can really quickly inflict a status effect from a distance and make my melee weapon deal crit damage consistently? You know? So that's how I balance it out, is like making rocks and fists have, like, their specials, turn them into sort of utilities if you want to use them later in the game, so that they don't lose their viability, even though there's no way they keep up in the damage department. Anyway, that's just how my mind thinks when thinking of weapon balancing for stuff like this. It's like, if a weapon doesn't deal a lot of damage, it better have something else going for it. And vice versa, if a weapon deals enormous amounts of damage, then it should have some, you know, some drawbacks. Maybe it's super slow. Maybe it costs a lot of stamina or ammo to use. Maybe it only deals a lot of damage under certain conditions, like needing to have a very specific set of stats, or things of that effect. There's many different ways to go about it. But it also makes me excited because there's just so much potential with a system like this, where you have these 4 specials that can really make a weapon a lot more unique than it would otherwise be. Okay. Yep. You know, funny aside, chat. If this were like, if this were a literal Pitaton on Ice Pit, this would almost look like a Diamond Pitaton from Minecraft, so that'd be kind of funny. even though that's not the intent. Dorothy Heartwell in Minecraft. No. Okay. Yeah, I think the other thing is, just because of the way XP works in this game and how you can with wisdom get to a point where you're earning a lot of XP. What that means is, because there's so much diversity in what you can do with a system like this in terms of like weapons and leveling up and stuff, and how like far you can push it in terms of how high those numbers can go, that makes me more inclined to make like the late game and end game bosses like expect you to have like weapons in like the level 60 to 90 range. Imagine Dorothy Heartwell in Mortal Kombat. Now, that wouldn't make any sense. Now, but what I'm saying is, like, for people talk about power creep in games, and my thought is, with like later game bosses, especially when I'm trying to balance those out, I'm probably going to balance them in a sense where, like, the expectation is you have either a late game weapon or you have, like, a super high leveled weapon. Like, they'll be the goal will be to balance them around that expectation, as opposed to a game like Dark Souls 1, where once you get past, I'd say, around plus 11, after that, then all of a sudden it's like you're dealing such massive amounts of damage that you can really cheese the not cheese the game, but it makes the game way easier. Because I don't think the end game weapons were really balanced around having like those fully upgraded weapons. They were kind of balanced around having mostly upgraded weapons, but not truly fully upgraded weapons, or close to it. And I would probably get to a point where, for the final boss, I think the expectation is you are close to max level. Maybe not in player stats, but definitely with weapons. The expectation would probably be like level 80 melee and ranged weapons or more. Well, Copper Nipples, if you're feeling cold, you know, you can always put on some gloves, wear a nice sweater, get all cozy. Oh yeah, Code Vein, the ending became a joke. I mean, the bosses at the end, near the end of Code Vein, depending on which bosses was, could be still a fair challenge. But at least with the enemies, yeah, once you get like to your max plus weapons, you can really just kind of delete things. Which, to be fair, that happens in a lot of RPGs. But I feel like with the bosses, they should be balanced in such a way where it's like, okay, you should have fully upgraded weapon. You can have fully upgraded weapons. Let's make a boss that's kind of designed around that. You know. I think Elden Ring actually does a pretty good job. Well, I think Elden Ring has some bloated health bars here and there, but otherwise, you know, with how overpowered you can make your stuff in that game, the bosses are definitely scaled with that expectation. Like, I remember when I was fighting Melania, for example. I mean, I guess Melania's a side boss, so let's not talk about Melania. When I was fighting I'd say the last 3 bosses of Elden Ring, they were definitely balanced around the expectation that you had a fully upgraded weapon. Because without that, the fights would just take way too long. Alright. You try maxing out Elden Ring weapons, but you still find the Fire Giant too difficult. Well, that just comes with practice, so... with a lot of bosses, like when you hit like a wall, it's usually a good time to assess things. Like, first of all, am I wearing all the right armor and talismans, and are my weapons as upgraded as can be at this point? Do my weapons make sense for this particular boss? And once you've like assessed all your equipment, same thing goes with like all the side equipment and even like food buffs if you're going that route. Once that is all there, at that point, that's just a question of taking the time to study the boss's attack patterns, learn them, learn when you can punish, learn when you need to back off, and at that point, it's a learning curve. If you do that enough times, you will eventually overcome the boss. One does not always have to resort to cheese now, mentions. In fact, I would argue that it's a lot more satisfying to overcome a boss legitimately. Like, a lot of times, my favorite bosses from Souls-like games are the ones that give me a hard time for reasons that are fair. So, in Dark Souls 1, Ornstein Smod is easily my favorite boss fight, because that boss, more than any of the others in that game, tests all your abilities as a player up to that point, but it does so in a way that never feels like, this boss is just unbeatable, it's just completely unbalanced. No, the boss is perfectly balanced, you just need to learn how to master the game. And that's what I had to do back then. Yep, it indeed feels rewarding. So like when I finally beat Ornstein Smod for the first time, I felt so ecstatic. So if you're struggling with Fire Giant, look at from the perspective of, I'm really gonna have to grind against this boss, try to learn its attack patterns, learn to get good, as they say, but also know that the light at the end of the tunnel is when you finally defeat the fire giant, it's going to feel so satisfying, you know? Yeah. Okay, now we need to rotate this. Hey, there we go. Now we make our adjustments. As you can see, chat, the rotation tool in graphic scale isn't necessarily the best. It just kind of has you in the general ballpark, but then you have to make your own edits to make it truly be what you need it to be. That's alright. Also good practice for learning how to make pits look rotated. Alright. It's looking a bit beefy there. Open this up. And also just put this there. Yeah, that looks better. Okay. That actually work, or that looked too much like a scythe? No, that looks more like a scythe. Less. Yeah, this one's tricky. I think that's alright, because you're rotating a kind of look curve like that. And that strap from the side view is a nice attention to Z's tail. Oh, nice. When you say the strap, you mean like the little part down here? That's not really a strap, it'd be more like a little metal ring that you find at the end of a lot of stuff, a lot of mountain tools. And that's so that you could theoretically tie it to something. More so like to hang it to a belt, or in the case of I know in real life, ice axes that are used for like climbing, they have little hooks or holes through them that you can basically put a rope or a carabiner through, so that way, like, if you let go, it's still attached to some part of your body and isn't just like dropping off the side of a cliff or something. Alright, so now we have our rotated ice pick. We shall do the shenanigans. Grabbing that. Grab that. Grab that. That. Grab that. And grab that. There we go. So now it looks like Dorothy's raising the ice pick behind her behind her head. I'll actually copy pasta that over here. You might say, why do that? So that we can bring this over here and know exactly how to line it up properly. So, bada bang, bada bum. We delete what you don't need. Like that. And now it looks like Dorothy's again holding that over there. Well, also looking at the detail of, like, yes, part of the aspect is long enough to actually be visible there, so we have to leave that there. Tiny little details all that's up. John Wayne, the Pit Cats, mayhaps. Now, do the rotation. Okay. That. And the nice thing about this frame is that we can just copy pasta. Move slightly. Now we just need to do these two. Which thankfully are just because of the way these work out, we just rotate them to the side. So now it's like they did some kind of swinging animation. There we go. Similarly, bring that over here. One for the chat while I try to measure some things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That. 5.
Okay, so it's slightly over there. This is 2 to that. That should be 1. Alright, right now I'm trying to decide, do I leave that there, or do I like that? There, there. This will look more like that. Oh, and also need to delete it. That lines up.
Okay. Alright, chat. So, as we can see, we've drawn 4 more attack animations. So tonight's attack animations are these 4 right here. We got ourselves Skeleton Key, Gravity Lance, the Sonic Baton, and the S-Pick. So, we'll continue next dev stream to work on some more weapon types. I think next dev stream will be a good time to move towards perhaps some ranged weapons, or some of the few main melee weapons that require something a bit more specific. But for now, I think this is some good progress. So, I'll be wrapping up tonight's stream. If you're watching on Twitch, feel free to stick around for a raid. If you're watching on YouTube and you like what I saw, please consider subscribing on YouTube. It's free to subscribe on YouTube. You don't always change your mind later. It's a great way to show support. If you're watching on YouTube, I hope you have an amazing night.